The first rays of dawn cast a golden hue across the quiet earth, a world still blissfully unaware of the attention it had begun to attract. From the depths of the cosmos, beyond the bounds of human understanding, something ancient and far more intelligent had taken notice. It wasn't just curiosity that had stirred the distant alien civilizations, but something far more curious, a reaction triggered by the human tendency to boast and challenge. Humanity had always been prone to moments of bold, sometimes reckless bravado. It was in their nature to push boundaries, to believe that they were invincible, that no force could threaten them. But on this particular day, their casual bravado had set in motion a chain of events that would reverberate across the galaxy. Kalen knew it wasn't just another day at the office. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the glowing blue screen in front of him. His fingers hovered above the keyboard, and his gaze drifted toward the calm link blinking insistently at the corner of his screen. The message was unlike anything he had encountered before. "Hold my beer," it had said, just 3 simple words, but they carried far more weight than Kalen could have ever anticipated. A group of friends, gathered around some local bar or dim-lit corner of Earth, had dared to utter the phrase that would mark their world forever. To humans, it was a light-hearted declaration, a challenge that implied no limits, no boundaries, only the pursuit of risk and fun. Kalen, however, wasn't thinking about fun. The moment he read those words, he knew something had shifted. The message had traveled far beyond the confines of Earth's atmosphere. It reached a distant alien council that had long since monitored the galaxy, ever vigilant for signs of intelligent life. The Galactic Council was ancient, vast, and deeply suspicious of civilizations they deemed too reckless or unpredictable. Humanity, up to this point, had barely registered on their radar. They were seen as a primitive species, primitive enough to be overlooked, dismissed, or considered harmless. But, "Hold my beer," wasn't just a human quip. It was a signal, a bizarre signal that indicated something far more dangerous than they had anticipated. The Galactic Council's response was immediate. A new protocol was activated, and Earth's threat level skyrocketed to maximum. The planet had now become a target of curiosity, suspicion, and worst of all, fear. In a sleep chamber far from Earth, in a ship older than most human civilizations, an alien named Ryan gazed at the data streaming in from the distant blue planet. His glowing eyes flickered with a mix of surprise and irritation. "They have done it again," he muttered, his voice echoing through the chamber. Ryan was one of the Council's analysts, tasked with interpreting signals from civilizations they monitored across the galaxy. He had grown used to the galaxy's quietude. Most of the Council's observations of Earth had been filled with apathy. But now, Ryan could feel the stir of alarm beneath his calm exterior. "They think themselves harmless, these humans," he said, his voice laced with disdain. "But they always surprise us, don't they?" His fellow analysts shifted in their seats, their humanoid forms casting long shadows against the cold, metallic walls. "Perhaps this time, they've pushed too far," one of them remarked, her tone laced with concern. "Hold my beer." A phrase of defiance. "It suggests recklessness, hubris." Ryan sighed deeply, his exoskeleton shimmering faintly under the ship's dim, pulsating lights. "Recklessness," he echoed. "Yes, that is what they always reveal. But why now? Why this simple phrase?" The Council had long ago developed protocols to respond to civilizations deemed too unstable or dangerous. Earth had never fit that category before. They had been viewed as insignificant, a primitive world with no real ambitions beyond their own survival. But this was different. Kalen couldn't shake the feeling of unease as he sat in front of his monitor, his mind racing. There were hundreds of messages sent every day across the world, memes, jokes, idle banter. But, "Hold my beer," was something else entirely. It wasn't just a phrase. It was a declaration of freedom from consequence, a promise of risk, a challenge issued not to just the immediate circle of friends but to the entire universe. "What the hell did we just do?" Kalen muttered under his breath. He had grown up in a world of endless possibilities, where every leap of faith had led humanity forward. But now, Something about that phrase had opened a door that could never be closed. He could feel it, the weight of something far bigger than him looming on the horizon. The Galactic Council saw Earth as a world on the edge of chaos. Their long-standing policy of non-intervention had worked for civilizations they deemed stable, but Earth had now crossed an invisible threshold. They weren't just reckless. They were entertaining ideas that could spark conflict, disrupt order, and potentially endanger entire star systems. The Council viewed such unchecked behavior as dangerous, and dangerous civilizations did not go unnoticed for long. "Hold my beer," Ryan repeated quietly, his voice now tinged with a hint of dread. "They don't understand what they've invited." Kalen sat frozen in front of his screen. His fingers tapped nervously against the keyboard as he considered the consequences. The phrase had been a joke, a simple, human dare, but it had sent ripples far beyond what anyone had imagined. What would the Council do next? Would they send emissaries? Would they try to contain humanity's perceived recklessness? Or would they simply erase Earth from existence, deeming it too much of a threat? In that moment, Kalen realized something profound. Humanity had become more than a curiosity. They had become a problem. The once clear sky over Earth had become clouded with uncertainty. Rumors buzzed across the globe, whispers of distant forces now turning their attention toward humanity. Governments scrambled to understand what had triggered such a shift. But Kalen knew better. He had seen the data, the warnings. The Galactic Council wasn't interested in explanations, they acted on threats. Kalen had spent the past few days haunted by the phrase, "**hold my beer." It echoed in his mind, an absurd, meaningless taunt that now seemed to carry the weight of the entire galaxy. His friends had laughed when they'd said it, unaware that they had triggered something far beyond their comprehension. He couldn't shake the feeling that something far worse than he'd anticipated was about to unfold. It wasn't just paranoia anymore. The Council had issued orders, and in their cold, calculating way, they were already moving. Their response wasn't swift, it never was. Civilizations they deemed dangerous were never eradicated overnight. No, their methods were slow, meticulous, designed to ensure control over the chaos they feared. Kalen rubbed his temples, the weight of his fear pressing down on him. Every choice now seemed meaningless. They had awakened something ancient, something that didn't care for human life or human reasons. "What are they waiting for?" Kalen muttered as he stared at the endless sea of reports and notifications on his screen. "Why haven't they acted?" In the Council's observation chamber, Ryan and his fellow analysts continued monitoring the situation with growing impatience. The signal they had picked up, the casual human phrase, had been categorized as a threat of escalating magnitude. The Council never acted immediately, but now they could feel the tension building in their endless, cosmic bureaucracy. "There's no more room for ambiguity," Ryan growled, pacing the cold floor. "Their recklessness cannot be ignored." One of his colleagues, a thin, humanoid figure with glowing veins under translucent skin, nodded. "But why now? Why did they choose this particular moment to act recklessly? Earth has always been unstable. They have always been volatile." "Because," Ryan hissed, "they crossed a line we didn't even know existed." Their civilization had long monitored the galaxy's most primitive life forms. But humans, despite their flaws, had always been viewed as inconsequential, their petty conflicts dismissed as meaningless distractions in the vast web of interstellar politics. Until now. The phrase, "hold my beer," wasn't just a symptom of human recklessness, it was a cultural touchstone, one that hinted at something much deeper. It was a symbol of humanity's defiance, their inability to adhere to any boundaries, to their ceaseless drive to challenge and test limits. And now, those who had once been viewed as insignificant were awakening a dormant fear in the Council. Ryan scowled as he realized what was coming. They cannot control their own impulses. They are unpredictable. That is what alarms us. On Earth, Kalen's unease deepened as reports from all over the planet came flooding in. Strange phenomena had begun to occur. Scientists, researchers, and ordinary citizens alike were encountering anomalies they couldn't explain. Systems that had long been stable, the Earth's weather, its communications networks, and even its orbital satellites, were beginning to falter. Equipment malfunctioned. Systems shut down. The unexplained, often dismissed as minor technical glitches, had grown increasingly severe. Kalen sat in his dimly lit apartment, staring at his monitor, the hum of the city far below him echoing in the silence. His once ordinary world was shifting, warped by forces beyond his understanding. He could feel it. The Council's attention wasn't going to fade. If anything, it was sharpening. His mind raced through possibilities. Was it too late? Was there any way to reverse what had happened? The Council didn't make mistakes, at least, not ones they couldn't fix. But what could a handful of humans do against such cosmic forces? Humanity, Kalen knew, had always thrived on hope. They had faced threats before, wars, diseases, natural disasters, but none like this. None that were so beyond their reach. They don't just want to watch anymore, Kalen whispered. They want control. Across the galaxy, Ryan and his team watched the unfolding chaos with dispassionate eyes. The Council had protocols in place for civilizations deemed too dangerous. Their approach was simple: observe, assess, and act only when necessary. But now, they were growing restless. The human phrase had ignited something more than just a cultural shift, it had triggered their oldest fears. Chaos was in the air, and the Council had no patience for it. Their recklessness has already caused ripples we cannot ignore, Ryan said, pacing the chamber. We cannot afford to wait. Kalen, meanwhile, watched the news feeds in horror. Reports of strange disappearances, massive power outages, and unexplained celestial events flooded his screen. People around the world were beginning to panic, clinging to whatever they could grasp for answers. But Kalen knew, deep down, that there were no answers. Not yet. The only certainty was that the Council had awoken, and their threat level wasn't a warning, it was a declaration. Humanity had crossed the line. And now, the galaxy was watching. The tension across Earth reached its peak. Governments had declared emergencies, and entire nations were plunged into chaos. The once orderly systems of human civilization began to crumble beneath the weight of fear and uncertainty. Reports of strange phenomena multiplied: massive storms that swept across continents, unexplainable blackouts, and mechanical failures that crippled the infrastructure. The ordinary routines of life had shattered, leaving humanity scrambling for answers that seemed perpetually out of reach. Kalen had become a figure of curiosity in his own right, his name whispered across the globe. His quiet discovery of the Galactic Council's looming presence had placed him in an unusual and terrifying position. The people of Earth didn't know what to believe anymore. Was this just another temporary crisis, or had their entire world been altered by forces beyond their control? In a dimly lit lab filled with crackling monitors and blinking lights, Kalen stared at the endless stream of data cascading across his screen. His heart pounded, his breath shallow. The strange anomalies, power surges, electromagnetic disturbances, and reports of disappearing satellites had become impossible to ignore. His once steady world had devolved into one of constant danger. He knew that whatever had triggered the Galactic Council's attention wasn't some passing event, it had awakened something far more sinister. You can't run from this, Kalen muttered, his voice barely audible over the hum of the machines. The phrase, "Hold my beer," had begun to feel like a curse, echoing through his mind. What had once been a moment of reckless bravado now felt like the dawn of something far more deadly. The Galactic Council, hidden away in their vast, ancient ships, continued to observe Earth with a cold detachment. Ryan had returned to his analysis chamber, his irritation mounting. The humans had forced their way into a dangerous game they hadn't realized existed. The Council didn't care for explanation or diplomacy. They saw only threats, chaotic, unpredictable civilizations that refused to conform to the order they upheld across the stars. Why have they not succumbed to fear? Ryan muttered, his voice filled with both disbelief and frustration. Why do they not kneel before their fate? The humans' defiance, their persistent pursuit of danger, intrigued the Council's leaders. It wasn't just their reckless behavior that troubled them, but their refusal to cower before what should have been overwhelming forces. They believe they are special, Ryan hissed. But their hubris will be their undoing. Across Earth, ordinary people struggled to make sense of the strange events happening around them. Entire cities were plunged into darkness as electricity flickered and failed. Satellites, once vital to communication, suddenly vanished from orbit, leaving the planet cut off from the rest of the galaxy. Governments issued warnings, but the truth was clear to those like Kalen. The situation was spiraling far beyond human control. Kalen had tried to reach out, desperate for answers, but the messages sent into the void returned with silence. The Council had no interest in listening, only in acting. They had seen enough. Earth had become a threat in their eyes, and it wasn't just isolated incidents anymore. Entire planetary systems were now at risk. In the Galactic Council's chambers, Ryan and his fellow analysts pored over data, their hands moving with swift precision. The reports showed a growing instability, an expanding zone of chaos radiating outward from Earth. Planets near Earth were beginning to experience similar phenomena, shifts in their star systems, disruptions in communications, even the rise of strange lifeforms that had never existed before. "This cannot be allowed to continue," Ryan declared, slamming his fist against the console. "We must act now." But they weren't sure how to act. The Galactic Council had always sought order, but now, they found themselves grappling with a threat they couldn't fully comprehend. The humans had refused to submit to their laws, to the rigid hierarchy that had kept civilizations in check. And now, they were pushing further than anyone had anticipated. Kalen, meanwhile, had become consumed by his own thoughts. He'd spent endless nights combing through the data, piecing together what had happened, and what could still be done. But there were no solutions. Every step forward only seemed to deepen the danger. The systems that once held humanity together had broken, leaving behind a fragile existence that teetered on the edge of annihilation. One night, sitting alone in his dim apartment, Kalen stared out the window at the city below. The streets, usually alive with movement, were eerily silent. Above him, the stars twinkled faintly, but their glow seemed distant, almost alien now. The earth below felt as though it were teetering on the brink of collapse. "Is there any hope?" Kalen whispered to himself. His voice trembled. "Or have we already lost?" The Council, meanwhile, continued their silent watch. The galaxies trembled beneath their gaze. The humans had drawn attention with their recklessness, and now they would be judged. Whether they lived or perished would depend on the decisions made by the Council's leaders. Kalen could feel it, the weight of something vast and ancient looming just beyond his comprehension. The phrase, "Hold my beer," had transformed from a fleeting joke into the prelude of humanity's darkest hour. The air had become heavy, suffocating. Humanity teetered on the edge of oblivion. The once confident voices of Earth were now whispers of fear and uncertainty. Governments had dissolved into fractured states, struggling to maintain order amidst the chaos that had consumed the planet. Kalen, now a reluctant symbol of hope, knew the truth. There was no turning back from the path they had set. The Galactic Council was watching, waiting, and no plea would undo the damage done by a simple human phrase, ***. Hold my beer. But even as hope seemed to slip through his fingers, Kalen refused to give up. It wasn't just the phrase or the recklessness it symbolized. It was the human spirit, the very thing that the Galactic Council had feared. Despite their primitive technology, their feeble grasp on the stars, humans possessed a resilience and creativity that none of the Council's protocols had anticipated. Kalen had spent countless nights studying the anomalies, piecing together fragments of data no one else dared to acknowledge. He knew now that the Council wasn't just watching, they were reacting. But what they hadn't accounted for was the unpredictable nature of humanity. It wasn't just about survival. It was about defiance, about refusing to accept the role assigned to them by the galaxy. The answers came from the strangest of places, ordinary humans who had continued to push boundaries despite the mounting danger. They hadn't stopped. They couldn't stop. It was as if something deep within their DNA had been awakened, a primal need to challenge, to evolve, no matter the cost. Kalen sat in his dimly lit apartment, his fingers tracing patterns on the table as he stared at the holographic screen before him. His mind was racing, thoughts colliding in a torrent of possibilities. The Council, he knew, wouldn't relent. They had labeled Earth a threat, and their approach was simple: containment or destruction. But Kalen wasn't ready to let go of hope. He had always believed that humanity's greatest strength lay in their ability to adapt, to survive, and to fight back when all seemed lost. And now, in this moment of cosmic crisis, he saw that strength in every corner of the planet. The key wasn't in their technology, or even their desperation, it was in their will. As Kalen reviewed the data once again, he stumbled upon something that made his heart skip a beat. A pattern, hidden deep within the anomalies. It wasn't something the Council had anticipated. It was the very essence of human ingenuity, something they had dismissed as primitive and inconsequential. Their recklessness isn't a weakness, Kalen whispered to himself. It's their strength. He began mapping out the strange disruptions, the moments when technology had failed, and people had risen to meet the challenge. It wasn't by accident that these failures had happened. No, they were signs of something far more profound, a shift in the very fabric of Earth's existence. Kalen's discovery wasn't just about reacting to the Council's actions, it was about outthinking them. The Galactic Council had spent millennia perfecting their laws, their protocols. They believed in order, in control. But humans had never thrived in order, they thrived in chaos. They survived by bending rules, by challenging boundaries, by rewriting the very definitions of what it meant to exist. It was in this realization that Kalen saw the possibility of hope. Humanity had always been underestimated, dismissed as insignificant. But now, in their defiance, in their unwillingness to submit, they had the potential to rewrite their future. Kalen wasn't a hero, not by his own reckoning. He was just a man who had seen the truth in the madness. The Council had already made their move, but Kalen knew they had also overlooked something vital: the human spirit. He gathered a group of like-minded individuals, people who had seen the truth in the same way he had. Together, they formed a loose alliance, a rebellion against the Council's control. They didn't have weapons, and they didn't have armies. What they had was the resolve to stand against the cosmic forces that sought to erase them. Their plan was simple but daring. They would harness the very chaos the Council had feared, using it as a weapon against them. It wasn't about fighting back with strength but with creativity, with the very essence of what it meant to be human. As Kalen stood before his small group, his voice shaking but resolute, he spoke of a future they would forge with their own hands. We are not just humans. We are more than the limits they've set for us. We will survive because we refuse to let them take our future. In the darkness of space, Ryan's patience had worn thin. The humans had defied every expectation, every protocol. Their recklessness had become something far more dangerous: resilience. The Council had hoped to contain or eliminate the threat Earth posed, but now they faced something far more elusive: humanity's refusal to be subdued. Ryan couldn't ignore the reports any longer. The humans had tapped into something ancient, something the Council had long forgotten. They had embraced chaos, not as destruction, but as a form of resistance. And in that resistance, they had found a power the Council could not predict. They will not surrender, Ryan muttered. They never do. Back on Earth, Kalen and his small band of allies had begun to see cracks in the Council's defenses. The once distant forces had underestimated humanity, but Kalen knew they had awoken something far greater than they had feared. The phrase, "Hold my beer," had become the rallying cry for those who refused to be victims of the galaxy's indifference. And as Kalen looked out into the stars, he realized that their journey was far from over. They had only just begun to reclaim their future.